My mathematics teaching activity is called the probability scale and has been designed for Year Level 4 students. Students will be provided with a range of scenarios which they will need to order on the probability scale based on the chances of occurring and will come up with their own scenarios and determine their likelihood. This activity will therefore be effective in terms of enhancing students' ability to order familiar events from the least to the most likely to occur, linking to the achievement standards and the chance substrand of the statistics and probability strand within the mathematics curriculum.
Okay, so now that we've gone through the probability scale and the language of likelihood, you guys have your scenarios, which I want you to place on each of your probability scales, which look slightly different depending on which group you're in. So Tristan, you're in the Marsdale group. Where would this one go? Kingsville fly? Cool. So keep going with your other ones. Terry, where would this one go? Third. Yep, so the sun looks set. And Kristen, where's that one going to go? Even chance. Good job. So make sure you put the probability fractions for each of yours. And if you guys finish your work early, come up with your own scenarios, determine their likelihood, and share them with the partner.
Students should have prior knowledge of fractions, the chances of everyday events occurring, and the language of likelihood in order to successfully complete this activity. The teacher will need a whiteboard markers, a probability scale to model the activity, differentiated probability scales and scenarios for each group, A3 paper and markers. Students will need a maths workbook, pencil and eraser for the extension activity, and those in the KitKat group will need a whiteboard marker. This activity is based on the Year 4 chance substrand of statistics and probability strand that has been differentiated and therefore also links to Years 3 and 5 of the mathematics curriculum, allowing students to develop progressively. It also links to the expectation component of the big ideas of statistics, as students will be required to categorize different scenarios based on their understanding of the likelihood of their occurrence or how often they would expect them to happen. The 5E inquiry model has been implemented throughout this activity to enhance students' understanding of the chances of different events occurring and the 4 proficiency strands, and in particular fluency for this activity. Students will engage with the definitions of the language of likelihood, explore the probability scale, explain their new knowledge by coming up with their own scenarios and predicting their likelihood of occurring. Will elaborate by placing the provided scenarios on the probability scale and will evaluate as they share their own scenarios with the partner. As acknowledged by Charlotte, LaVisca and Van der Buren, the 5E model will therefore be effective in terms of positioning students to take ownership of their knowledge. This activity aims to actively address students' misconceptions. Students may have limited understanding of the language of likelihood. To address this, an anchor chart was used to go through the key terminology associated with probability. Another method could have been to get students to match the words to the definitions. Some students may also experience difficulty when representing probability outcomes as fractions, as recognised by Booker and others. Only the higher achievers or students in the KitKat group will be required to do this. If these students are having trouble, then they can refer back to the probability scale on the whiteboard, which has each of the probability fractions clearly labelled on it. The teacher could also spend some time working with this group in order to provide them with more clarification. Students will be divided into different groups in order to differentiate this activity and to ensure that each student is challenged appropriately as suggested by Thiessen and Blasius. The teacher will also work one-on-one with students in order to further support them. Those within the Mars bar group will be provided with a range of scenarios and will need to identify the probability that they will occur as either certain, even chance, or impossible. This links to the Year 3 statistics and probability chance substrand. Students within the Freddo group will be provided with a range of scenarios and will need to identify the probability that they will occur as either certain, likely, even chance, unlikely, or impossible, linking to the Year 4 statistics and probability chance substrand. Students within the KitKat group will need to do the same thing as the Freddo group. However, they will also need to represent the probability of the scenario using fractions. This links to the Year 5 statistics and probability chance substrand. If students finish their work early, they will be required to come up with some of their own scenarios, identify the probability of their occurrence, and share them with a partner. This activity could have been further differentiated by making the scenarios slightly more challenging as the ability level of each group increased.